I think a lot of fans were overly critical of the design for the recently revealed ruler of the Gluttony Ring, Beelzebub, who they were expecting to be a lot larger, to say the least. But a fun thing about Helluva Boss is that it doesn't give us a shallow take on any of its manifestations of the 7 deadly sins. With that in mind, today we're going to talk about the complex relationship between Beelzebub, gluttony, and addiction as presented in the show. Vivziepop loves exploring the psychology of addiction as seen with Angel Dust in Hazbin Hotel, the PCP-addicted stripper who much of Hazbin Hotel really revolves around. His struggle is the struggle of the show, because no matter how hard the others work in the Hazbin Hotel to support Angel, it is ultimately up to him whether or not he can overcome his addiction. Beelzebub is at the opposite end of the totem pole, being a prince instead of a lowly sinner, or rather princess of the Gluttony Ring. The 7 princes seem to have cultivated their particular ring to best serve their particular sin. Generally, this means trying to indulge that sin with the natives in some way, but in a way that supports the greater vision of the prince as well. With Asmodeus, the prince we've seen the most of so far, he's turned the lust ring into one giant nightclub district that people come to from all over hell to see. His life is built around some of his royal duties as a prince of lust and a king in the Ars Goetia, but even that seems to be just so that he can maintain his little slice of paradise in the lust ring. Beelzebub's system is much more precarious, as she seems to be heavily addicted to the honey that is produced in the Gluttony Ring. The honey is demonic, so is naturally going to have something like hallucinogenic properties, and is believed to be the key ingredient in Beelze juice, which could be mead made from the honey. This is highly addictive and puts Veroska in rehab for a short while, with her coming out still drinking it heavily in episode 3 of season 1. We can see Beelze swimming through this honey and her looking like she is in a state of ecstasy. She mentions in her song that she likes to give the Hellhounds what they want, not what they need, as long as they keep making honey for her. Now, this could be a literal trade-off she is describing here of the Hellhounds working by day and partying by night, but Beelzebub made several references to being able to really feel or taste the mood of everyone at the party, and I'd like to examine those more closely. In her song, she talks about, of course, having the Hellhounds make the honey, and afterwards, she says she is high off of the tasty energy of the party to explain her mood to Luna. When she walks away from Luna, it's not to do something for herself, but to keep checking in on everyone else, making sure they're good and having booze and food, just like in her song. She's more focused on being a host than anything else. Blitz ends up in a drinking battle with Beelzebub over some of her most powerful Beelze juice, in a game no one has ever beat her at. Blitz beats her with relative ease, and the look Beelzebub has at first is one of absolute horror. She gives Blitz praise afterwards, hoping it will make him feel better, but as she explains later, Blitz is actually in a really terrible place right now. He of course just had his weird night with Stolas and Asmodeus, and is feeling pretty worthless, like the lowest of the low that everyone is now laughing at. She says later that she can taste the flavor of people at her parties and gets really uncomfortable with what Blitz is doing. She recognizes his behaviors as reacting to internal pain, not just his mischievous behavior with the other party guests, but the way he was able to absolutely beat Beelzebub at her own game was an indication of just how much pain he was in. Blitz makes this clear when he says he's ready to win because of how bad a night he already had. Beelzebub suddenly gets recontextualized as someone who is in so much internal pain that hardly anyone could ever compete with her at her drinking game, until Blitz came in feeling even worse than Beelzebub does on an average day about herself, it would seem. Blitz's flavor of feelings doesn't just concern Beelze, but it seems to eventually make her lose control. She tried to be restrained around Luna, who was already being rather rude, but ended up becoming her giant Beelze beast mode in the end. A lot of fans speculate that the mood of the people at the party influences the honey production itself, giving it a different effect to those who drink it. By making it at the most fun of parties where no one is having a bad time, it becomes a drink that makes you experience an entire party all at once. This is an intoxicating experience of a perfect night among dozens of people, all in one beverage, but it only works if everyone at the party is really having a good time. This makes Beelze perhaps the ultimate empath, and in tremendous pain without the Beelze juice that she takes to a gluttonous degree. However, this doesn't make Beelze an entirely good person either. The party gives the impression that her system is more beneficial to the hellhounds making honey than to her drinking it. From this episode, the Gluttony Ring seems like a paradise where you spend every night having a good time to support Beelzebub, but outside of Beelze's immediate vicinity, her actual empathy disappears. When her partygoers are out of sight, they are out of mind. They aren't near her enough to influence her or her party. Beelze juice is an addiction, and while Beelze may want to do better for the people of Hell and her ring in particular, the most important thing to her is going to be maintaining the Beelze juice, and everything outside of that becomes a bit of a distraction. The Hellhounds seem to have a serious problem with children being left at Hellhound adoption agencies, which are basically just prison pounds. Other demons like Blitz can come in and adopt a Hellhound much like we would adopt a dog in real life. My theory thus far is that the Hellhounds, like dogs, breed at faster rates than the other demons, with multiple litters of puppies throughout their life, something the economy of Hell just isn't built up around to support. While other species like imps can also have many children, I don't imagine it is nearly to the degree that the Hellhounds do, and Millie's family still seems pretty stretched thin with her somewhat large family. The solution thus was the Hellhound Adoption Foundation, which would take in Hellhounds and try to find them homes with other families. This inevitably leads, however, to people buying the Hellhounds like pets and treating them like servants, putting them right next to the imps or even below them in terms of Hell's hierarchy. While Beelzebub has amazing and beautiful locations for her parties, the Hellhound Pound looks entirely underfunded, and again, it really looks like more of a prison. And all of these adoptions appear to be signed off by Beelzebub herself. In Blitz's photo, we can see a signature that looks like it reads B-E-L, which many people assume to be short for Belphegor, the Prince of Sloth. However, series writer Adam Nalen confirmed that the cursive letter made the last E look like an L, but it was meant to spell B-E-E, short for Beelzebub, not for Belphegor. Belphegor, of course, still exists in the show as the Prince of the Sloth Ring, but we have not met her in person yet. With all that in mind, Beelzebub seems to do the bare minimum and could be doing a lot more to make the lives of Hellhounds better, with their party culture and gluttony likely leading to a lot of the unplanned litters of the Hellhounds, directly fueling the experience at the party that affects all of that honey. It's a pretty tragic system Beelzebub has created, and she likely has a hard time breaking out of it, even if she wants to, because of the addiction to honey and her focus on maintaining that lifestyle. Addictive substances are something explored not just in the Gluttony Ring, but also in the Sloth Ring, with the aforementioned Belphegor being in charge there. In the Sloth Ring, the drugs are presented as pharmaceuticals and medicine, with Stolas getting addicted to handfuls of happy pills as we saw in the Season 2 premiere. Beelzebub says she would like to get some of Belphegor's private stash, but even a fellow deadly sin is not allowed to have it, which really shows the difference in their sins in relation to the drugs. Gluttony, of course, is about excess, but Sloth uses these meds to essentially maintain a docile population, and as such, it would be about limiting its flow of these prescription meds to create lifelong patients constantly on the edge of needing more, instead of using them as a special occasion party favor for a good time. Beelzebub is so far my favorite deadly sin, and I really hope she is able to recur, or at least get developed secondhand with more comments from other characters. Vortex is someone who could recur pretty easily and could always shed more light on what exactly is going on with Beelzebub. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on the relationship between gluttony, addiction, and Beelzebub in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.